how to increase targeted opportunities with ABM Display Advertising and AI. We've got some great panelists here from both Infer and Quanzu. I'm very pleased. I'm Kelly Waffle, the Vice President of Marketing at Quanzu, and I'm very pleased to have both of these panelists today. I know them personally, and I think this is going to be a great session, very actionable, very insightful, and hopefully you can walk away with 1, 2, or 3 tips that you can immediately apply to your strategy and your tactics. Next slide, please. So one of the panelists or presenters we have today is Sean Zinsmeister. He's the Vice President of Product Marketing at Infer. Sean is a great blend of a lot of things, including marketing, technology. I really like what Sean stands for and thinks about in the area of data. He's the kind of guy that if I wanted to know how to leverage data better or get a better sense of what the products are out in the landscape, Sean would be my go-to guy. He is also a musician-born marketer, which he's going to explain later. And like myself, he's won the Eloquent Marquee Award in the past. So it's great to have Sean on board today. Money Iyer works with me over at Quanzu. Money is your very much your profile of an entrepreneur. He is constantly thinking. He's always looking at ways to connect the dots between business and technology. Money is very passionate about what he does. I'm sure Sean is the same way. But Money really spends a lot of his time paying it forward and trying to provide help and advice to people so that they can move forward in what they're doing in ABM, marketing, display advertising, and so forth. And again, I'm Kelly Waffle, and I think what I kind of bring to the discussion is that I've been on the agency side, I've been a practitioner of a lot of these technologies, I've been a consultant in the ABM space for a while, and I've also been on the vendor side. So I bring a pretty well-rounded perspective on things, and try to be as unbiased as possible in a lot of my discussions, and hopefully people find value in that, and I've been recognized with some various awards as well. So in the next few slides, before we really get into the discussion, we really want to set up the foundation. And so Money, if you'd like to address the first couple of slides moving forward, that would be really helpful, I think, for the audience.
Thanks, Kelly, and thanks everyone for joining us today. And as Kelly said, the topic for today is really, how do you apply predictive and AI, especially on display advertising. So to set things up, we thought, why don't we quickly take a look at the new Serious Decisions demand unit Waterfall as a framework or model to kind of tee up against, and see where does display come into play, where does predictive, where does AI come into play in the context of display. So just a little bit of background, or I'm sure many folks in the audience might have seen a lot of the content coming out these days from a lot of different providers, a lot of marketers, as they're all trying to get their hands around this new Waterfall that Serious Decisions just introduced in their summit May of this year. First up is the notion of demand units, where a demand unit, the definition that you see here is that it is a buying group that is organized to address a specific need of the organization that requires a solution. So the big change here is the move from leads, where, as marketers forever have been thinking leads the last several years, and different stages of how a lead moves down the funnel, to now starting to think about demand units. And the demand unit, first thing is the concept of the buying group within an account or company. So again, important terms, I guess, specifically as we think about ABM, account-based marketing, account-based advertising, and then tying the buying group to the need of the buying group, tying it to specific resources and budgets that are required to fulfill that demand unit. And all that, of course, ties into a solution from a provider. So you've got the notion of a target demand, which is how many of these demand units are available for the provider to fulfill. There's the notion of active demand, which is who are the folks who are in market, who are currently might be in market for, with a demand unit that a provider can try to fulfill. And the assumption, of course, here is everybody listening, and we are all providers. We all have solutions we want to provide to our customers out there who are accounts and companies are going after. From active demand, the next step, of course, is engaged demand. Who's actually responding, be it through emails that you send out, be it through your salespeople reaching out. And then the notion of being able to prioritize. You may have a fair bit of engagement. So how do you tell the ones that are really interesting for your sales team to focus on? So you prioritize, you qualify, turns into real pipeline, and then you of course go after and try to close them. So with this whole serious decisions demand unit waterfall, let's now start to map it to the world of display advertising when you apply it to this same funnel. Again, not traditional display, not just spray and pray, but again, account-based display advertising, account-targeted display advertising, targeting specific demand units you're going after. So here's kind of what it looks like. So this is a sketch we came up with at Quanzu playing off of the SDDU waterfall. And for us in our world, target demand is really the master account list. So now you could argue, well, why is it just at the account level? Why can't you map it down to individual, even multiple demand units? And some of it honestly is the state of the current technology and the fact of how you can do reach into accounts through ads and different ways to do targeting of ads, different ways to reach these users through these ads, these contacts, buyers at these different companies or accounts. So at the current state of the market allows us to think in terms of accounts, and then the account essentially represents a demand unit you're going after. And the first step for us is to figure out coverage. Which of these accounts are even reachable through display ads, even before you launch? So one of the first things we do as we work with customers is we provide them with what we call our ACR reports, account coverage reports. Now, once you know which accounts are reachable, the next step is where predictive comes in, AI comes in market accounts come in, figuring out the right contacts, and then that's how you can apply, again, predictive techniques, AI techniques, to identify the right accounts to go after. So this is at the active demand stage, even before, let's say, you've actually started spending media dollars and started serving up these ads, is you would apply the insight and intelligence from products and providers like an Infer and others to intersect the reachable accounts for ABM Display with the ones that are in market as we speak. It could be in the last week, last few weeks, within a well-defined time frame. And now you decide, you know what, these are my best target. These are the ones I'm going to go hit with ads, right? So once you got that nailed, you then start serving ads, and then you would then, once you prioritize your spend, start serving ads. The next step is engaged demand, is where, again, we look at reports we call account-level engagement reports, visitor journey reports, where we can report to sales through platforms and tools like what we guys offer here, around who are the accounts, which of the accounts are actually engaging with you right now. They're demonstrating engagement through clicking on your ads, visiting your website. The visitor journey gives you kind of a holistic view of all the actions, what pages they visit, et cetera, et cetera. And then that information flows to sales. Now, sales would now need to prioritize and kind of connect the dots, put it together between known contacts that are engaging, leads that are engaging, which is all the information they get from their marketing automation tools, and marrying that with all the anonymous visitor data that we provide, and we're able to provide that at a much deeper level than the reverse IP technology. What happens to reverse IP today is a lot of people sitting on home computers. You're not able to ID them. But when we have some really interesting cookie data from partners we work with, folks like Oracle BlueKai, Oracle Data Cloud for B2B and others, we were able to provide some very interesting insights for your sales team to decide which accounts to go after, which accounts to engage, and then the rest of the information, of course, is all through CRM. Which ones are qualified, which ones turn into pipeline, which ones you close, and then that's how you can measure ROI on these programs. So that's kind of a quick summary of how ABM Display Advertising fits in with the waterfall, where predictive comes into play. There's also a play for predictive and AI in the prioritized demand stage when you need to start mapping from accounts into contacts. Hopefully we'll discuss that later in the webinar. Kelly, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mani. I appreciate that. I think that lays out a nice visual for people to kind of understand where we're going with our discussion today. So now I think we've got 3 other foundational slides that we're going to have Sean address to give us the rest of that foundation we need for our discussion today. Sean?
Hey, all. It's really, really good to talk to everybody this morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Sean Zinsmeister. I head up product marketing at Infer. My quick little background is that before I got into the world of Infer and Predictive, I actually was an Infer customer when I ran global marketing operations at a company called Nitro. I always use in my profile musician-born marketer because I'm actually I studied classical music composition and theory for a number of years, and actually figured when I turned that into a career as an audio engineer and sound designer, and so signal flow was always something that was very, very directly interesting to me, and I was actually able to marry that with a nice marketing operations career, which sort of led me here. And so I like to say that system-centric thinking and algorithmic thinking, because I find that music is nothing more than a very complicated and beautiful and artful algorithm in itself. This is the way that I really like to approach this stuff, and there's nothing that gets me more excited about thinking about AI and the better overall customer experience, right? Because in addition to increasing revenue, that's really what all these great technologies and strategies, like Mani was giving you all in the overview, really come to place. But I wanted to get into a little bit of the guts, a little bit of the weeds about like what's going on with AI and sort of helps demystify it. And the reason I kind of like this slide is that if you're reading from left to right, you see inputs, something happens in the middle, and then outputs, what I call applications, okay? And then we'll tackle that stuff in the middle because I want to pick out a few of those keywords to sort of help the conversation along, because they get thrown around a lot, right? Like everything's machine learning and AI, it all feels very unusually science fictional at times, right? But we're going to help sort of pull that curtain back. So when you look at the inputs, you're talking about your data sets. Mani already sort of started to reference about that. I mean, one thing that sales and marketing teams are really, really good at, it's collecting a lot and a lot of data. Now, whether or not that type of data is going to be any use to you, that's certainly a question that data science, AI, and machine learning really, really help with. But the idea is that you have a lot of different inputs, and there are different data sets within that inputs, right? Like you have engagement data, which are things like from your marketing automation, your Google Analytics. That's time-based data. That's very, very different. It's a more volatile, always changing. It's an entire stream of activity versus more static data sets like firmographics, demographics, and technographics. And for the most part, those are indeed mostly static. I mean, technographics might change a little bit. You might change your CRM undergoing a big project, or maybe you swap out a few technologies here and there. But for the most part, it does remain static. Being able to take all those inputs. The most important step, and I think it's also often trivialized by people who look at predictive technologies for marketing, is the importance of data preparation. How do you get the data into a form that is going to deliver you the most powerful model, the most accurate model, the most likely to be statistically correct model, right? So, and a lot of people look at their own data sets and it's like, oh, it's dirty, I'm missing values, null values all over the place. This is why things like data enrichment, natural language processing, title normalization, filling in the gaps and cleaning things up to make it a more recognizable model that you can add a platform like Infer to in order to sort of create these outputs. Let's talk a little bit. I wanted to pick a few keywords. So machine learning, right? You're hearing a lot about this, right? So machine learning essentially is a subfield of computer science that, according to Arthur Samuel in 1959, gives, quote, computers the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed, right? There's a lot of things that you run into with machine learning today. So if you look at I like photo recognition. I'm actually undergoing a big data project for my wife right now to try to get all of our pictures into the cloud. And it's interesting, so I'm moving to an Amazon system because I didn't want to push everything on Facebook because it's more for private collection and family. And it's interesting because while I'm pushing all of this data, there are no labels on any of the photos because I've never used Amazon Cloud before. You know, all my pictures have lived in Google Photo and Night, but this was the decision that we made. So they all need labels, right? It all needs these different types of inputs. Once it gets a certain amount of inputs, what we call training data, then it starts to take out. So if I identify, for example, a few pictures that have my face in it, and I say this is Sean Zinsmeister, you know, it will now recognize every single time that picture comes in me, and that's a great way of thinking about machine learning. It's picking up that data, it's getting smarter and smarter. The other piece here is natural language processing, NLP, the ability of a computer program to understand human speech as it's spoken, right? NLP is a component of artificial intelligence, and in this particular instance, you're really looking at, you know, patterns of text strings and things like that. How about one more, just one more, because we don't want to dive too deep into the weeds, but you also hear a lot about data science, also known as data-driven science. This is an interdisciplinary field about scientific methods, processes, and systems to extract knowledge or insights from data in various forms. And this can take the form of either structured or unstructured data. We can sort of talk about, you know, definitely interested to talk about the difference in that. Title normalization, that's something where if, you know, you're selling to sales and marketing professionals like me, it's their titles all over the place, so putting them in a form that's understandable. And the outputs are the applications. How is this stuff actually used once you get it? What do these predictions do? And I like to think about it in three categories: sales performance management, you know, how do I reduce wasted marketing dollars and create more marketing efficiency? And of course, you know, data-driven or data-guided workflows. Can you go to the next slide? Great. And the last thing, once you sort of understand some of the guts and components, you want to zoom one level out and think about, like, where does this fit in my overall technology stack? And I really like this idea of system intelligence because it's really marrying three major pillars that you build most highly productive marketing stacks out of today. You have your system of record. For many, this is like a Salesforce or a Dynamics or a Pipedrive or something like that, or heck, even you know, a very complicated spreadsheet. CSVs, hard to believe in some businesses, are still used, massive CSVs as CRMs themselves. And your system of engagement with your marketing automation, and then of course marry that with your system of intelligence. You know, these three should be able to be weaved together in this sort of cohesive circle. And so I wanted to sort of offer just that type of framework when you start to think about some of the technologies behind the strategies like the Serious Decisions Waterfall. I think that with that we can jump. Actually, there's one more slide. If you can go to the next one. If you take nothing else away from sort of AI and what it's doing, think of it as the line judge, to use a tennis analogy. It really does help automatically determine from, you know, thousands, millions of data points to understand, is this a good prospect, a good fit, or are they highly engaged? Let's send these along to sales, or do not work them. So I really want to offer just another analogy to sort of so people can sort of understand and ground what's going on here. And I think that with that, we can jump right into some of the discussion topics we had today.
Thanks, Sean. So no, I'm glad we kind of laid the foundation there. I think most people understand now that with traditional marketing, a lot of dollars are being wasted. You're casting this wide net. You're going out with very broad messages. You're not getting the kind of interaction you want, engagement, and so forth. And, you know, account-based marketing really helps marketers focus their money and their time and their resources better because they're going after specific accounts. But with that, you know, I can tell you that every day as I'm talking to people, I see a lot of frustration with both sales and marketing around a variety of different challenges, such as data usage, you know, which you touched on a little bit, Sean, account targeting. You know, I couldn't agree more with what Sean said earlier about people don't spend enough time up front with ABM around the planning and budgeting stage, and I think that only costs them more in the long term. But, you know, that's a big challenge. You know, account prioritization, I can go on and on, integrations, engagement, even, you know, people are frustrated about, what are their expectations. So they're very different than, lead gen and demand gen expectations and measurement as well. So there's a lot of ground that I think we can cover here and kind of help people kind of focus in and learn to be more effective with the use of ABM display advertising and AI and data in general. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I'd like to start off, Sean, with a question for you, and that's really, where and how does predictive analytics and AI fit into ABM?
Yeah, so I mean, part of this is really understanding the account selection and targeting piece of this. And it really, any good strategy always starts from segmentation, and also aligning that segmentation with your product to make sure. I go back even further than, just the segmentation and audience selection and things like that. The real key is to really understand, the art of building these target account lists. I think that what people don't want to talk about when it comes to ABM is can be a very heavy strategy, right? Like the idea of going from looking at things through a leads-based lens, which is a more wider market. Now, well, I will argue very much that leads are a very important part. They're the lifeblood, because there are people within these accounts. The thing is that knowing which accounts are going to be good fits, and then to gain insights at scale about why those businesses are good fits. Are they highly engaged? To understand the timing, which allows you to sort of prioritize. That's huge to building an efficient and productive ABM machine, because you can't afford to get bogged down in the wrong places where you're unlikely to win. Now, even the best, highly fit A accounts, you still might lose for a variety of reasons. And I think people have to respect that. B2B sales and marketing it's complicated. It's more complicated than sort of measuring performance marketing and conversion analytics that you might on the consumer side, because of the overall scale. But the truth is that you can avoid some of that. And I think that for me, when you think about where the data can save you money along what I call the marketing supply chain, it's amazing. And I think even there, it's like you can diversify the risk of going and spending the time in the wrong places. The smarter you are about the data and identifying opportunities. It is playing, for those who are familiar with the book and also movie, it's a money ball. Understanding what the stats and averages are. Now, that doesn't also mean that you need to follow them blindly. I'm not a proponent of that either. I think that there is something to business instinct and a lot to domain expertise. But the thing about working with predictive vendors is that what you're looking for is how do you translate that domain expertise into a machine learning problem and solution. And that's really where the art comes into this, and that's a huge component of really being able to do ABM and perform well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Sean, around the need for lead generation. It's not a case of one or the other, and this is where I see a lot of people kind of tripping over themselves or having problems getting started. Is how much of what they're doing should still be focused on lead generation, and then how much should be going into ABM. It's got to be somewhat of a transition. And having said that, Money, if you could go to the next slide, my next question is for you. So, Money, as a lot of these people have come up through the ranks around creating some sort of demand generation funnel or waterfall or things like that, and they're used to following certain conversions of different stages and working with SALs and SQLs and MQLs and then passing things over to sales. As they kind of dip their toe into the water around ABM, there are a lot of ways to get started. So why should they start with ABM display advertising?
So, yeah, thanks, Kelly. I think we are seeing a number of customers coming to us, and they're, let's say they're still early in their ABM journey, and we are seeing them put some program dollars budget against ABM display as one of the first things they do. And there are actually a few different reasons. One is time to value, right? Because as an example, we had a call even this morning with a company where they said, look, we are going after 5,000 accounts, but here are some 543 accounts that our sales guys are not getting any engagement at all. They're not engaging. We've tried all the traditional channels. We've done emails. We've done this. We've done that. They're not engaging. How do we get in front of them? So that's a quick one, because literally, let's say they gave us their 543 accounts. Within 2 weeks, we can turn around and give them what we call a matching audience segment with the matching cookies. These are key targets at these accounts, which are now it's the ads that we can deliver to the right accounts, to the right people at those accounts who are, say, in a function they care about, like marketing or sales or finance. In this case, we're going after the accounting and finance department. Right set of titles, so director, VP, whatever. And then so 2 weeks in, they got their audience segment set up. And another week, they can be serving ads, and another couple of weeks, they start seeing initial results. So their sales team is off, getting what we call weekly account level engagement reports. And they said, our simple goal is we'd love to see our sales guys even talk to even 20 of these accounts, want to engage 20 out of these 500. If I can do that within 3 months, they're happy. Their ACV is $250,000 plus. So big money. So, with a reasonable budget, of like $10,000 a month, within 3 months, if they can see those kind of numbers of accounts are engaging. And by the way, we've seen engagement of 20% and up, right? 20-25% and up of the target account lists that are engaging. That's really is the primary reason we're seeing. The second is the low requirement in terms of the number of tools and systems and things and data that they need to plug into to get this off and running. As I said, all they need to give us is the account list, and they give us title specs. And then we set up the audience segment, the ads are set up, they get served, and then we start measuring right away with a tag placed on their site which accounts are engaging. So it's that simple. Hope that answers your question, Kelly.
No, it does. And I can just say from a personal experience, as I've worked with different customers, is depending on your sales cycle, which could be 9 months, 12 months, or even longer, it's pretty hard for a lot of marketers to go out and justify the resources and the expenses and the time involved in ABM to get it ramped up into a full program. So having something like ABM Display Advertising kind of makes sense, because you can run a complete pilot in a matter of 3 or 4 months, and within those 3 or 4 months, you're able to go back and show heightened awareness, increased engagement, more reach, things like that you can take back to your management and show them that you are getting traction. And while that stuff's going on, that kind of provides the stability for you to roll out your other programs, such as email and webinars and everything else that may take a little bit longer to kind of show any kind of traction or ROI. So that kind of makes sense. So Mani, if you want to click to the next slide, my question is really, ABM Display Advertising works, and then it kind of makes a lot of sense to combine that with AI, because just the kind of direction and insights you can get from that, I think, would really help you out, around account targeting and segmentation and everything else. But from your perspective, and this is a question for both of you, and let's start with Sean, how should marketers, Sean, leverage this combination?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and one that I battle with a lot. And I see when I talk to a lot of marketers is that the best ones are constantly going through the motions of target and engage. If you had to look at, what was the key marketing operations strategy that led to, some of the successes that we had at Nitro and significantly growing revenue, especially on the B2B and even the e-commerce side, actually. You're constantly looking at your database and making different slices and attacking those slices, like looking at how you can engage. And I think that it makes sense to take this omni-channel approach, because again, you're thinking about how you are spreading your marketing dollars around to understand where you are likely to get the most engagement. The more sort of actionable intelligence you put behind that, the more that you know you're going to be reaching people with relevant messages. I think a lot of people get wrapped around the axle with things like personalization. It feels like such a big impossible and even somewhat of an invasive term. I don't know that everybody wants like a quote unquote like personalized experience. And I think that different vendors, especially on the B2C side even, you know, when you look at what personalized shopping looks like and things like that, I think everybody has sort of a different definition of what that looks like. I think the key is, though, is to sort of zoom out and look at relevancy. And I think Monty touched on this a lot, which is that you want to be able to, you know, and this comes true from the heart as a product marketer. You know, I want to make sure that we are always taking a problem-centric approach. What is the market problem that we are looking to solve? How can I help these people I'm engaging with solve this problem? And if we are attacking the market with a message that perhaps this is not the right problem to solve, then that's where data can be even more investigative, you know. And I think that's also why I think people are using things like technographic signals, and I think this is a really interesting evolution that I've seen especially grow over the last few years in B2B in particular. And by technographic, I mean like looking at the different technologies that, you know, segmenting by technology. Okay, so, you know, this particular account uses, you know, ad roll, they use Salesforce CRM, they use you know, Oracle SQL database. You know, what do these different combinations, or is there a particular technology that is more highly predictive? If so, why? And then you're not just gaining certainty with the targeting and engagement strategy, you're also gaining insight into your message and relevancy, all right? You know, I'm just trying to introduce this exercise of using the data to really engage in a multidimensional way. It's not just about the serving of the ad. That's really important. That's really important. But it's also about like how you're engulfing that message too. And I think that that's where the data and also AI helping you find the right types of data, surface those insights, and create that actionable intelligence is really where this combination really comes to light.
So Kelly, should I take it? You want me to go next and kind of elaborate on this?
Well, Monty, I think that one thing that I was going to prompt you for, because I think it's really interesting, is I don't know that people know a lot about BlueKai and also even what a DSP is, and maybe talking about how you guys are sort of leveraging that system, because I think that's one that's talked about a lot, but then not a lot of people understand. I think that would be really interesting, especially as it pertains to this particular question.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sean, for that prompt. So yeah, let me do that. So why don't I kind of explain this one with a real world kind of a example, right, of what we're doing with one of our clients. So large global IT services company targeting accounts across North America, and they are going after, they've certainly given us account lists, several hundred accounts, a couple of different times. We've done 2 different programs and then on to the third. And they're targeting companies that are over, say, 10 billion in revenue and up, right? Really large accounts. And then what we found is a kind of a recipe here is to kick off these ABM display ad programs and develop a baseline in the first execution without applying predictive AI kind of, let's say, prioritization of accounts, rank ordering of accounts, right? So get a baseline first. So that's what they did. And so they saw a certain level of engagement, meaning certain number of accounts are engaging with their ads across all those accounts that they were targeting. And so in the next go, what they've done is essentially now applied a predictive/AI filter. So again, talking about Oracle BlueKai, what we do is we take these account lists, we push it to Oracle BlueKai and their large billion-plus, cookies and device IDs, where they've actually tagged them to the accounts those cookies map into and the titles of key players of those companies that they map into. And what we've done is we've now, for the first iteration, as I said, we serve highly targeted ABM ads to the list of accounts that fit their revenue criteria and the accounts that they gave us. This next execution, we've actually applied an in-market filter on top for specific topic keywords they gave us. So there were keywords like cloud security, right? So there's a bunch of different keywords. So we applied those topic filters, we narrowed down the account some more, and now we've kicked off the program again. And within literally a week, we're already seeing some very, very interesting results, right? Where engagement numbers are up. More of the accounts are engaging because if the creative is set up right, if the messaging is right, if the messaging is on the topic we're talking about, and so there's instant value in terms of increased engagement with these ads. That's one example I do want to mention is about applying an in-market filter on the BlueKai audience segments, which, by the way, are pushed from the BlueKai, which is called a DMP, data management platform, the DMP seat, over to a DSP, which is a demand-side platform like Google DoubleClick Bid Manager. The job of that platform is really the actual ad buying or media buying. So account lists get loaded into Quanzu, they get pushed over to BlueKai for the audience segment setup. From there, they get pushed into the DSP, the ads get served, all of the reporting then comes back in our platform, and then customer has access to that 24/7. Okay, so that's the entire sequence. That's the flow. That's how display ads can be. Again, in an A/B test scenario, you can apply AI in market, predictive account filters, and then you can see if you can increase your engagement. That's for the engagement side. I want to mention one more thing where AI comes into play, and we're already seeing that people are finding very, very interesting. That is, once you've engaged these accounts, once you know the titles of the people, contacts, key contacts of those accounts you want to go after, that's what AI can again help you figure out, are you talking to the right people at those accounts? Are you, and as you said, Sean, it can go beyond just the title keywords. It could be based on their LinkedIn profiles or any kind of job profile, any kind of profile on those people that's out there, and basically be able to make sure you're rank ordering or sequencing the right contacts of those accounts that are interested in your product, service, or solution. We call it ABM Contact Discovery. So the combination of account-based engagement and driving them up with AI and predictive and in-market data, and then ABM Contact Discovery, so you're talking to the right people, at least the sales team is. Those are the two interesting, what I call intersection points between ABM Display, predictive, and AI. Kelly?
Thanks, Mani. Good stuff there. Whenever I have discussions with subject matter experts like you guys, I mean, a lot of it makes sense, but what really brings things to life is when I can hear them in use cases like Mani, you were starting to do there. So I would like to spend a couple of minutes having you guys talk about a couple of use cases, but before that, I do want to allow the audience to know that if they have any questions, if we have time, we're going to do a little Q&A session at the end. So if they want to write in questions now, we'll put them in the queue and we'll answer as many of those as we can at the end. But yeah, my question is really for both of you. What use cases are you seeing implemented today that you think would be of value to our audience? And again, let's start with Sean.
Sure. Well, I'll start with maybe one of our earliest customers, only because it's top of mind. Tableau, who's been with us for about 6 years or so. Actually, when we were under our original name, Slice Data, they still call it a slicer score with the way that they look at things. They're actually going to be on if people are interested. I have a podcast where we interview a lot of people from around the technology scene called Stack and Flow at stackandflow.io. If people are interested in learning more about this or hearing more about this. But I had a chance to catch up with Mike Braun, who is the director of operations over at Tableau. And Tableau, I mean, they have really a massive footprint. And they're just one of these examples of a company that not only is going after the acceleration play. Zendesk is another great example of this. But they're also doing things like enterprise consolidation too. And by that I mean they're being able to sort of group leads together to find account hotspots, if you will. They're a data company, so I mean it's great that they're not only just leveraging Infer, but they're porting all that great stuff into Tableau to build visualizations in addition to like what we provide natively in things like Salesforce reporting and things like that. But really it's so huge for them to remove the noise. Filtering is like the #1 use case. It's the set it and forget it AI use case, in my opinion. And people would argue, well, shouldn't most AI be set it and forget it. It's like, yes, I do think that there's still a lot of human intervention right now with a lot of these, and there should be. And this is one of the reasons that Infer works hands-on with our data science team and our clients to sort of to build these together, because I think that you want to leverage the domain expertise. Remember I talked about that translation? That's really, really key, that translation from your domain expertise into a machine learning problem that we can solve. So Tableau is a great use case where they're actually seeing great results just in terms of overall productivity and being able to set aside noisy data. You know, this is where we do things where just a spam filter alone, you know, we're looking at things like, we have a particular, you look back to that puzzle piece diagram that I showed, spam filtering is really looking at things like keyboard strokes upon form entry query, being able to detect bunk inputs before they can even come in. And we're looking at a lot of this stuff. That's also where natural language processing comes in. You know, does this look like a real one, or is this ASDF at ASDF.com, and get all that junk out of there? Because when you're working at scale like a Tableau, that type of noise is so damaging. And also, if you think about the data holding costs, those can be very damaging too. It's also just, you're creating stack inefficiency. Anytime that you can lighten the load, I'm a big believer in this idea of lighter, more agile stacks. It doesn't necessarily mean less applications, less products, less, you know, software, less SaaS, I guess, right? But I think if people look at how complicated the stacks are today, I mean, even if you look at the Mary Miku report that came out today, I mean, the average enterprise is using over 90 SaaS applications for marketing alone. 90, that's incredible, and most of them have their own data store, which is insane. But the reason I bring that up is because how do you orchestrate all that data together? Well, this is where you really need to look at AI as a system of intelligence, and this is what Tableau is really doing. How do you weave it into your different applications? So you want to take this data and put it over here into a BI tool like Tableau or Microsoft Power BI or anything like that? Well, that's great. You need to have that flexibility in these modern stacks. The other one I like, just because we talked about behavior data, New Relic has been doing some really interesting work. Them and actually a couple of social tables as well has been doing something, looking at engagement data. I think that it's really relevant to this conversation because Monty really talked about those two filters. And what I really love is that, you know, you're looking at that blue sky data to understand where the intent is. You know, where is that coming from, matching for the keyword queries that people are looking at. I mean, that'll really help with that initial targeting leading to engagement. But it's also really important, and it's also highly predictive, to look at what I call first-party behavior data. And this is the data that's tracked in your marketing automation platforms, right? Those are the JavaScript queries that we have on our websites that are collecting all this stuff, you know, all this stuff, all this raw data. And what we want to understand is that we're not letting any opportunities fall through the cracks. You know, when you look at things like these, you know, monolithic type nurture databases that we've created, you know, most of the things are being neglected in there. And you want to understand that, you know, next time around when that account comes around, you know, after they went quiet for another, you know, any number of reasons, you want to be able to have those triggers and alerts set up and create that operation flow. And that's where something that New Relic has really built, what I call like an advanced prioritization model, because they go through the first filter, which is understanding, is this account, is this prospect a good fit? But they're also looking at, are they highly engaged? And they sort of built that next level, because now that they know, they're adding that timing component. And by the way, this is where, like, when you looked at Serious Decisions early model and they're looking at the 4x4 scoring grid, I mean, it's a really easy way to understand how to be modeling some of your prospects, right? Both in an account and at a leads-based level, by the way. You can do it at a context level as well. But understanding fit and then behavior on the other. And then I like this idea of the third dimension, especially upon engagement targeting, when you're looking at things like Bukai data that's available to sort of understand maybe what's outside of your owned media, your owned stack, as it were.
Mani, do you have any use cases that come to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, let me again try to make it real concrete. So what we've seen is that there's an increasing level of, I would say, maturity in our customers as they do more and more ABM display around how they're doing segmentation, right? So how they're building out the audience segments that they want to dedicate media budgets against. So, and we're seeing that audience segmentation across, let's say, their entire list of accounts, which, by the way, you know, they are sending our way initially to get account coverage data, meaning is this account even reachable through display ads, be it through cookie targeting, IP targeting, doesn't matter. Now, when they give us these account segment data, account information, we're seeing them start to lay it out where every account, number one, they're bucketing it in, let's say, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So to Sean's point, that kind of definition of whether the account is a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 is something they're driving in their CRM using a predictive engine, predictive tool like Infer, right? So they're using that technology, laying out the tier of the account. Another key attribute for us ends up being the sales region. Is it US East, West, Central, whatever? Another key thing where they drive media dollars against is the account owner, right? Is it John Smith, Susan Smith? Who's the account owner? What we then end up doing on the BlueKai side is essentially setting up these audience segments by these different kind of account categories, right, or account keywords, which is, here is the audience segment by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Here's the audience segment by sales region. Now, where it gets interesting is now you can overlay. Remember, now this is all based on first-party data. Now, imagine you can now overlay which are the accounts that are in market within this segment, right? So now let's say you pick from BlueKai that in-market account intent data, and that overlays into these same accounts that are laid out in these audience segments, and you're doing pretty much, the best you can do on applying your media dollars into the accounts that are most likely to engage, most likely to move down your funnel, move down your pipeline. And then, as I said, you can again apply AI to do the ABM contact discovery downstream. So we're seeing this maturity starting to happen. Different kinds of customers are, starting to do this. Account tiering is very common, where they're applying either some kind of in-house, go with the gut type of segmentation still, or talk to your sales team and do segmentation, or, of course, the ones with predictive tools are using predictive tool-based segmentation. So I would say these are, the two main use cases we're seeing around applying predictive and AI for display. Kelly?
Great. Yeah, and if you could advance to the next slide, that would be great.
Okay.
So now's the time for any kind of audience questions that you have. I think we only have time for a couple of questions and answers. Certainly, any questions that don't get answered, if you want to contact us directly, we'll be happy to give you our answers to any questions that you have. So I do have a couple of questions here. The first one, Money, it looks like it's for you. It says, can you go into greater detail about what is involved in a display ad pilot? What are the types of costs? What would be a typical ballpark figure? And can you tell me a number of average impressions?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. So essentially, when we do these ABM display pilots, the most popular one we have when you're serving ads across North America is something we call ABM job title targeting. And that's where we plug into or tap into the billion-plus cookies and device IDs I talked about from Oracle BlueKai. From what we've seen, it's certainly, the most mature B2B cookie database available today. And works well for targets in North America and UK. And the typical number of ads in a pilot budget, we've seen anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 million ads, somewhere in that region. And again, we try to deliver a key number that we focus on is what I call cost per account. So typical account list we receive is on the order of, say, 1,000 accounts, 1,000 plus. And we're able to deliver a cost per account in the region of $30 to $60, kind of at the lower end of the scale. So that's why our typical pilot is around $35,000 for us. And we aim to engage, I would say, anywhere from 20, think of it as around 20 to 30% for initial pilots. So I would say roughly 25% of the accounts engage. And there are ways to kind of dial it up as the pilot progresses. Obviously, creative is a big deal. So making sure you have the right content, copy, offer, right landing pages, you can drive up the engagement. We make sure that there are weekly account level engagement reports that go over as the pilot progresses from marketing into sales. And sales can then follow up with their standard sales tactics to kind of engage them. And the ways to dial it up we already talked about, right? Using predictive and other techniques to make because account selection, as we all know, is a big deal. So I hope I hit the key points, which is about roughly 35,000 for initial pilot budget, about 1.35 to 1.5 million ads served, 25% accounts engaged, turn them into, as I said, at least one customer is looking at least, say if there's 1,000 accounts, think of it as, you want to have 40, 50 of them that turn into live conversations, right? Even if you had 1 in 5. End up, let's say, actually talking to you, then that's what they were looking for. Meaning, for every 5 that engage, at least one of them ends up being responsive and
right.
wanting to talk.
And how long does it typically take, Mani, to set up one of these programs?
Yeah, so I would say, when we get these ACR templates filled out with their account list, etc., we can turn it around in about a couple of weeks. We can have their audience segment set up. Another week, let's say, to get it pushed over. Those 2-3 weeks are not dead time. They can be, setting up their programs, campaigns, creative, etc. They have direct access to the platform. Set that up. So think of it as about 3 weeks. And assuming, if they need some creative assistance, we need to kick that off in parallel too. So in about three weeks or so, they can be up and running. And then typical ads serving happens over another kind of the next 3 months. So it's a quarterly budget for ad serving. Typically, there's like a refresh cycle about 6 weeks in. Of course, the way our tech works, you can actually change any of the ad creative anytime in real time. And then post-program pilot, many of our customers also mature into starting to personalize the ads and dial up the engagement even more. So we haven't talked about that, but those are downstream opportunities to do further refinement, if you will, of the program. But think of it as 3 weeks or so for them to get off and running. Kelly.
That's good. That I think helps people with scope. Here's an interesting question for you, Sean. What types of firms are most ready for predictive tools, and which ones are not?
Yeah, so this is a great question that we get a lot, and a lot of people. This is where they start to get worried about their data quality and am I a good fit for predictive and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I wish I had a really direct answer to that question, but the truth is that it depends because. A few years ago, I think that you could probably argue that this technology, especially when Infer got started, because Infer's been around for about 8 years now, which doesn't feel like that long, but in predictive years, it's actually it's pretty long in our years. The thing is that I think that people would argue that, an AI really requires a lot of data. And by the way, that holds true today. I think that if you look at sort of the deep learning neural networks that companies like Google, Microsoft, and are looking at, some of these other applications, more data is better in this, more training examples for it to look. Remember going back to that picture analogy? The more times it sees my face, the more it's going to recognize who I am, right? Or our friends. And I bring that as just an example so people can understand how these technologies, how their performance works. The truth is, though, is that there's a lot of AI that does not require a lot of data. If you're a new business, for example, the database is starting fresh. You're starting out, or when you're entering a new market, use that as an extension, right? There are shrouds on the map that you need to sort of unveil to sort of reveal what you already don't know. The truth is that there's a lot of things like similarity modeling that are out there that don't require, it's called like nearest neighbor, for those who really want to get into some of the data science behind this. I can provide some links if people are interested in looking at this, because I think this is sort of where, if you look at vendors who are building net new models, so you send them a saved list. So here's an example of 10 accounts or whatever, and they'll use that in a similarity model, and the AI will then sort of realize, okay, well, here's some accounts that look very, very similar. I think that that's a useful form of AI, and obviously doesn't require an existing historical data set, right? Because you always want to do that regression analysis first. But the truth, and I think that there is some insight there. I think that if you marry, I think that it's similarity modeling is still coming along, I think. I think there are some vendors that have some interesting uses. I just don't think that the net new use case in general for AI is where you're going to get the most stickiness in your system. You know, for many, it's going to be a one and done thing where it's just like, okay, well, I built this model, and similarity modeling, let's just, you know, pretend that that versus classification, perhaps we measure things area under the curve, so overall predictability power just is the number that we look at. And the thing is that, like, yeah, okay, so you could suffer a little bit in terms of the quality, right? I mean, look at it like 50-50 is a coin flip. You want better than that, because otherwise it's like there's no point if the machine can guess just as good as you can at scale. Although there's all those practical applications that I talked about, like filtering, that you really need to be able to do at scale, especially when you start acquiring a lot of data. I think sacrificing a little bit of the predictive power for that is okay, but then, like, once you purchase all of the accounts, for example, you'll start to see diminishing returns, and I think that those tools and vendors who are going after that market, just selling data, I think that the churn rate is particularly high because it's not a continuous use case for a lot of businesses. It doesn't mean that it can't get started. They're also very interesting, and we've built a couple of these called synthetic models. You know, for businesses who don't have you know, enough data, you know, can we construct it from a seed list? And really, it's just been, that's just relative to it happened to be very successful for some of these businesses. I don't think that it's too early, and I think that you want to be very pragmatic about how you sell these types of technologies to not overpromise it, because, you know, I don't think that we're selling science fiction here. But every business is very unique. Their environments are unique, their cultures are unique, their business processes are unique. And many times the models that they're able to build and deploy might be successful for some but not others. I think that there are patterns of use cases, which is why I always recommend, you know, if you are looking at these technologies, look at the customer community and ask yourself, do I look a lot like this customer community? Does my business look a lot like this? And that might be a nice signal to success to say that this is a vendor that I want to work with, or perhaps, you know, we want to tackle this internally, as some businesses have done with our own data science team. I think that that's a very large endeavor for a lot of companies to do. And I think that if you look at where the talent shortage is on the market right now, data science, man, if you're, you know, that's what, computer science, data science, these are going to be things where it's like, those are really, really hot right now. And if you're entering into a collegiate program university or something like that, I highly recommend that you pick that up. And I think more marketers need to pick that up as well. Learning about code, like being able to do basic SQL and understand Python and what's going on. I mean, you may not be the one writing the code, but I think it's important to start looking under the hood at a lot of that stuff. And by the way, and I link this back to your original question, Kelly, because, you know, part of it is about the education, about understanding more about the vocabulary and the syntax around these technologies, right? And so I don't think size really matters in this particular case. I mean, the complexity flow of data doesn't matter. I really think that the better question is, what problem are you trying to solve today, and seeing if you can marry that with a machine learning problem. And I think that that's really the key. And I think to put a limitation on that based upon a data set is a very easy out for some vendors to sell this product or this product. And it doesn't do really any justice for the business itself. And I think the better way is to approach it with the problem you want to solve and investigate how AI could help solve that. And I think there's a number of different ways. So to put limitations on it, I think is you know, can be a little bit daunting.
Well, I appreciate that, Sean, and I appreciate it, Money. We've run out of time here. I do want to let the audience know that this webinar was recorded, so you can request to receive a copy of it and listen to it at your convenience. Again, you can see posted up, we have our Twitter accounts listed there. I would highly recommend that you follow us on Twitter. I know both Infer and Quanzu push out a lot of insightful information on Twitter, and that may help you out. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to Sean, Money, or myself via email. I do want to thank our audience today, and I want to specifically thank Sean and Money for their participation, and that concludes our webinar for today, and I wish you all a happy day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.